Christina, let me ask you about the reports coming out of North Korea that they may have executed some of the officials involved in the negotiations during the February summit between the president and Kim Jong-un. I know we don't have a whole lot of information, and what information comes out of that country is not always trustworthy. In fact, none of it is trustworthy. But it is surprising that when the president of the United States was in Japan, North Korea did do some missile tests. While he was being hosted by a country who really cares about those things, Japan, the president said that it wasn't a problem for him that North Korea was doing that. I wonder what you're hearing from State or even the White House.
I mean, not a whole heck of a lot, right? We've seen the reports. The secretary said this morning he's seen the reports and he's looking into it. We know that Kim Jong-un was not happy with the outcome of the Hanoi summit. The White House wasn't especially thrilled either, but failing to deliver an outcome has slightly more dire consequences in North Korea, where you can go from delivering an envelope with a letter to the president of the United States in the Oval Office one month and a forced labor camp the next, which is what we're hearing has possibly happened to Kim Hyok Chol. These stories coming from North Korea, of course, as you mentioned, Vlad, always need to be taken with a grain of salt because of the reclusive and closed nature of the North Korean regime. Reports have to be smuggled out through unofficial channels. It's a bit like a game of telephone on a landline with a bad connection. And there's also the possibility that Kim wanted this story to get out as a warning to the Trump administration and those around him that he wasn't happy with Hanoi and he's not going to take failure lightly.
So then what does this mean for future negotiations, a possible future summit?
I don't think we know. I mean, I don't think we ever really know with North Korea. It's certainly not great if he's killing people. I think that goes without saying. And that usually doesn't foment a positive working environment. But we'll have to wait and see if these reports are, in fact, determined to be accurate, who will replace these individuals going forward, and what that means for the willingness of Kim to come back to the negotiating table and talk to the U.S., although he might not have a big rush of applicants for the job of chief negotiator, given what happened to the last one.
Yeah, well, really. But it does speak to the dangers that have been discussed by analysts ever since the president and the North Korean dictator first came to an agreement that they should meet, which is you now elevated this individual onto the world stage. But business as usual in North Korea. Just because he's a seat at the table now does not mean that he's going to change anything.
I mean, one could argue that it is business as usual, but at least at times there was sort of this mask or veneer of, sort of being at least more fair.
Well,
and
the
now
president says he and Kim Jong-un have a love affair.
Right, exactly. And so if this report is true, coupled with the missile testing, it certainly seems like Kim Jong-un is fearless when it comes to interacting with the president. He's not worried about any sort of future repercussions, whether it's sanctions or whatever, because it's pretty bold stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it's easy to forget, because even we as reporters, we saw Kim in Hanoi, right? We saw him waving to journalists. We saw him taking questions shouted by the press pool. So you think because there is that facade of normality that, hey, maybe things are changing. I think this is an important reality check that just because he comes to conferences and just because he is making ovations to act more like a normal nation doesn't mean he's going to do that when he goes back home. And that's something lawmakers and journalists need to remember.
Yeah, I would think it would put the president in a tough position when he praises Kim Jong-un, when he sort of, deals with his behavior with a light touch. I mean, some things I think you just can't sort of explain away.
Indeed.
All right. Christina, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.